listening to our podcast, you can check that out. That's on YouTube, but we're going to be doing that 5 minutes after the Sunday night game. It's a beautiful
Every week, all season.
It's the best week of the year. I know two of you might disagree, but I think it's the best football.
Oh, it's a good week
for
you, Greg. So then it's a good week for everyone.
We'll see.
Every week's a good week for Greg Rosenthal when it comes to the NFL. Mark and myself, yes, another dark start to another dark year to come. We'll get to all that. And, looking at the landscape of week one in the NFL, certain things that we kind of expected came to fruition in week one. The Chiefs would be unstoppable. The Dolphins would be completely stoppable. Jameis Winston would be a sloppy, mistake-prone quarterback. The Patriots would do something distasteful. All these things, we expected these things to happen, and they did. But then there's the surprises that, like the Titans would come out feisty, and the Browns would come out drunk. Lamar Jackson would come out like the 2019 answer to Patrick Mahomes.
Making the leap.
I mean, this is the excitement of a new season of football because everyone thinks they know everything, and then the games start. And here we are, Wes.
None of us know anything. We say this every September 8th or whatever it is.
So, here we are. Mark, you have anything to add? I know it's been a bad day.
No, you know what?
It's been a bad day as a football fan.
At one point today, you said you were a Bengals fan.
They kind of won me over for a brief
I heard
moment.
some Gio Bernard whooping
at one
point.
Then they lost me. But I think it's a perception-changing week, and the Bengals are part of that for me. But then week two tends to, bring us back to earth on a couple things too. So I'm not ready to make any final conclusions. I'll make some conclusions.
It's a long season.
That wasn't even Mark's best quote.
What was Mark's best?
I don't even want to know what Mike.
Dan said, Mark's not dead. You thought he was dead, but he's not dead. And Mark said under his breath, not on the outside.
Yeah, some things feel different. Some things feel very unoriginal and very similar to other years.
In Jaws when Brody and Quint and Hooper, they're all under the deck and they're comparing the shark bites and injuries. That was Mark and I after the dust settled on the early games where the Browns, and again, we're going to get to it, lay an unholy egg at home, losing by 30 points to the Titans of all teams. And then the Jets do what the Jets do, which is drop a absolute heartbreaking, disgraceful meltdown in the third and fourth quarter. These are two injuries that are going to take some time to scar over, Mark.
Until they play each other next week and one of us sinks into a deeper morass.
That was the time of the day where you guys seemed like less excited about the Marlon Mack 12-yard run I was honking about in the corner.
Yeah, Greg somehow found a way again to not emotionally connect with Dan and I on a football Sunday.
I mean, we don't know. I don't have to pretend like everyone died. It's a football game. We're moving on.
Oh, it must be easy to be you, Greg.
Other football
It must
games.
be easy.
I'm enjoying the other games.
All right, so we got all these games to get to, and we'll close the show, of course, by digging into Sunday Night Football with Greg's Throne of Ease Patriots against the Steelers. So let's get going. And where do we want to start? Why don't we start with, those unstoppable Kansas City Chiefs.
Four-man front for the Jaguars. As Mahomes holding it, firing it late, caught at the 40. Now 45, 50 in the open field, at the 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, 10, 5, touchdown! Kansas City! Sammy Watkins, a 67-yard touchdown right out of the gate. And the NFL MVP already gets more touchdown passes in this game than he did all last year against the Jaguars.
There you go. Mitch Holthus. He's got that week one excitement for the Chiefs radio network. Patrick Mahomes threw for 378 and 3 touches, all 3 of his scoring strikes to an unstoppable Sammy Watkins. And the Chiefs open up their season with a dominant 40-24 win over the Jaguars at the chlorine tank. This was a worst-case scenario for the Jags. I watched this game, and, they get their defense worked over in their own building. They got people in their bikinis and in their swim trunks and their margaritas, and they're looking to enjoy a football game. They're looking to get excited about the return of the dominant Jaguars defense, and I'll take a L there. I thought this was going to be a game where the Chiefs were going to have some trouble, but they had no trouble at all. In fact, I'll say this. The Chiefs, as crazy as it sounds, they roll up about 500 yards, and they still left points on the field. There were some plays that they missed. At one point, Patrick Mahomes tried a no-look pass to a wide-open Travis Kelce in the end zone and airmailed it. There were a couple plays here and there that they missed, and yet they still roll all over the Jags. And for the Jaguars, not only do you get embarrassed at home, you lose Nick Foles, your free agent savior, in the first quarter with a broken clavicle. He's going to have surgery. He's going to be out indefinitely. So just a total nightmare. The Chiefs feeling good. The Jags look like they're in serious trouble.
So many big stories from this game. I don't know where to start, but Gardner Minshew coming in, going 22 of 25 for 275 and moving the ball, at least in the short term, was interesting. I mean, I would have never.
It's a very soft Chiefs defense by the time he was doing a lot.
Sure, but it wasn't the Jaguars' offense that was a problem. I mean, the Chiefs put up 17 points in the first quarter and then had the lead throughout, and Minshew was moving the ball from minute one. And then the fact that Tyreek Kill had a serious injury in this game, is going to miss multiple weeks, almost
another clavicle.
Is an afterthought. But that's a pretty big deal for the Chiefs as well.
I mean, I think, Dan, you talked about things that are expected and unexpected in week one. And, for me, the durability of Nick Foles has been a beeline through his career. And he fits when he has to come in and patch a team and play 3 or 4 games in a row. But he's never started more than 11 games in a season. And when he was a starter, durability and injuries and a clavicle type injury feels like a very Nick Foles type setback to me. And the timing of it is so disruptive. And I don't look at the Jaguars defense. You played a high octane attack here. We can't just assume that they're going to proceed forward with the Jacksonville defense we've seen in the past. There were a lot of issues today.
How many network TV recap shows on Monday will be rehashing the Eli to Coughlin speculation once again? Rejoining forces because they lost their quarterback, and, it's Danny Dimes time in New York.
Well, here's the thing. Yes, Gardner, the name, by the way. Gotta love it. Gardner
I mean, a rookie
Minshew.
6th rounder coming
By the way,
in there.
Gardner Minshew 2.
Oh, the second.
Yes, it is Gardner Minshew, Roman numeral 2.
Whoa. Yes, he looked really good. 22-25, 2 touchdowns. But this cannot be the Jaguars' plan. And I just have to call them out here for maybe Minshew turns into the second coming of Tom Brady as a 6th-round pick. But Nick Foles has been injury-prone, and the fact that you entered this season with a completely untested kid who barely got drafted just speaks to a level of preparation by the organization that it's hard to get behind. And when you look at the Jags and that division, you wonder if they are in really deep trouble, because if Foles misses extended time, and you got to expect, none of us are doctors. Well, Mark is. He doesn't talk about it a lot.
I don't.
But you got to expect he's going to miss at least a month, maybe 2 months. And by the time he gets back, it might be too late.
Well, part of week one, the reaction is to find out what's real and what's just a 1-week aberration. And I think you have to look at Jacksonville as the biggest losers of week one, just because they lost their quarterback.
And they play the Texans and the Titans the next 2 weeks, so those are division games. I mean, they can look to some of the offense and see positive. DJ Chark, who did nothing for them last year, 146 yards. Chris Conley, they pick up, has 97 yards and a touchdown. You figure the defense will get it going eventually. With all these week one games, and maybe we don't need to repeat this point more than once, I do, and everyone said it, the fact that none of the teams are playing in the preseason and it's so hot in a lot of these places, including Jacksonville, I think it's a factor. I do think there are just things that are going to happen this week that it's hard to know what's due to fatigue or that, but it's a big factor.
I would say this. If you're a Chiefs fan, you have to be excited about LaShawn McCoy jumping in 81 yards off 10 carries. And we've waited for Sammy Watkins to do this forever. 9 catches, 198 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
We've seen games similar to this from him before, and then he'd go for 30 yards the next.
He's got to stay healthy. He's another guy.
Well, we have to mention Tyreek Kill
is
out, they say, for probably a few weeks.
He went to the hospital today.
Yes.
And we should mention we haven't done a show since he signed his long-term contract, which, if you include the total deal, is about $18 million a year in terms of the new money. Otherwise, it was a $14 million deal. I know we've seen a lot of surprising things, cynical things since we've taped this podcast. This one hit me when it happened that it's one of the most cynical moves I've seen in NFL history. They basically looked at what happened with Tyreek Kill in his child abuse case, and they decided, and I understand from Tyreek Hill's side why he wanted to do it, and said, well, that's worth about a 30% discount on your long-term contract, we'll sign you now, but take less money than would be market value. Of course, he's going to take it. There's some talk he had financial problems, but I don't know. Like in a
what's the other way to play it?
Don't reward someone that's had his child taken from him.
But once they bring him back, that's not an option. He's
see how this season plays out. Maybe wait for this was an off season where a lot happened for him. Maybe have that play out. You have the franchise tag.
I hear you. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Can you name 3 teams in the league that operate that way at this point? I don't think they
I think
exist.
the Chiefs and in general Andy Reid teams in general are going to take chances on guys with histories. I think they're a little more aggressive in that, and they saw an opportunity and they went for it.
All right, we'll get more into that as the week progresses, perhaps. But let's move on now. So the big loser in the AFC South was the Jaguars. Let's take a look at a big winner.
Play fake. Mariota rolling right. They're going to screen it to Henry. Man is blocked in the flat. A lot of room. 30, 40, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. 5 end zone. Yes. No flags on the field. 75 yards. Touchdown Titans. Derrick Henry from Marcus Mariota. And just like that, an answer.
Mike Keith, Titans Radio Network. Marcus Mariota threw 3 touchdown passes, including that game-changing 75-yarder on a screen to big man Derrick Henry. And the Titans went into Cleveland and embarrassed the hyped-up Browns 43-13. We'll give the Titans their due in a moment, and I promise you, Titans fans, I know you're thinking you're going to get screwed over here. You will get your due. But we have to start with the Browns, who could not have looked worse in their most highly anticipated game in decades. Mark, what in the hell happened at the Dog Pound today?
I think what happened is the Titans. This is a team that came in with a defense that was underrated last year and came in with more pieces. I think Cam Wake, as a pass rusher, absolutely ignited this defense up front, and they went against a piece of Cleveland's team that we were concerned about all through the summer, which was their offensive line, and Greg Robinson at left tackle, already a known liability, gets ejected for, as he's falling down, kicking a Titans player in the face early in the game. They, at one point going into the second half, had 5 healthy linemen, and essentially all of them playing out of position. They had to move Justin McCray to right tackle and Chris Hubbard to left tackle after Kendall Lamb, a fill-in for Greg Robinson, was ruled out with a knee injury about 8 plays into being in the game. It was an absolute disaster, and if you want to look at the difference between last year and why didn't last year's offense show up, and you add Odell Beckham and you add all this business, why aren't they the team that scored 43 points? Because the offensive line unplugged entirely, and Baker Mayfield, as much as he has the skill set to evade tacklers and maybe work behind a less than stellar line, last year's line did play stellar protection down the stretch. He was harassed today. He was harassed into poor throws. I think the team also got down early. The Titans got in their head, and they tired out Cleveland's defense that last year led the league in giving up big plays, and they gave up big plays today. It took a little while for Derrick Henry to get unhooked, but he had a couple big runs that set up big first downs, and he had that 75-yard catch and run for a touchdown that broke Cleveland's spirit. This was a Titans performance to remember.
43-13, though, is not just the Titans. This is a total meltdown, and here's the stat that will tell you that. Penalties, Cleveland Browns, 18 for 182 yards. So the Titans, and again, the Titans fans, you're going to get your due, but the Browns absolutely no-showed this game.
I think Cleveland, and Freddie Kitchens, after the game, was asked about this. 18 penalties for an insane amount of yardage, the most since 1951 for the Browns. And if you said
happen.
If you said we're going to point back to some stats from 1951 for this year's Browns team, you wouldn't have thought it was that. And Kitchens did not have a great answer after the game. He said this wasn't happening in practice. They had every offensive drive in the first half was capsized by penalties, and every defensive potential stop was capsized by penalties. Jim Nantz correctly called this the choppiest game he had ever seen.
Wow.
And I think Tony Romo sat there thinking, this was a great situation for the Titans, and Cleveland completely did not play up to anything anyone thought. It was an embarrassment.
That choppiness was compounded, I believe, in the second half by the hit that Baker Mayfield took at the very end of the first half on his throwing arm, and his arm did not look right to me in the second half. That's not I'm not making an excuse for him. He did not throw with the same authority that he threw with.
Well, and I'll let you guys add to this, but he left with his right wrist wrapped, and they said it's nothing overly serious.
He said he's fine, but we'll see if he's fine.
He was wincing in pain during.
That's another thing we all talked about leading up to Week 1. What could hold the Browns back if you can't protect the kid behind center?
And Cameron Wake was a huge part of that. He gets 3 sacks. He continues to build his case, I believe, someday for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, where you're going to have to include those CFL MVPs. And he's got Dean Pease now and Mike Vrabel have built up a defense where there's not superstars, but there's playmakers, especially at linebacker.
Kevin Byard's a superstar.
Malcolm, the secondary is a little deeper. I think there's a lot of reasons to like them. And I think the curse, as our friend Dave Damashek would say, of supposed to, was in play here. When the Browns fans were booing the heck out of their team and it was 12-6, I thought, like, that's maybe the expectations and everything that they were feeling and believing all offseason. The final score is very misleading in my mind. It was 15-13 late in the third. I mean, this wasn't a blowout for 3 quarters.
I don't think it's misleading when Cleveland got forced into throwing passes.
I hear what you're saying, but it's very rare that a team loses by 30 and gains more yards than the other team. That's what the Browns did.
And the Titans, again, to their credit, they showed up and they balled out. And when you have a team like the Browns that has a lot of hype around them, that fuels the opposition. And that's what happened in Week 1. Let's listen to Delaney Walker, the tight end, who had 2 touchdowns in this game. He was one of those players who was feeling very good afterwards.
They sleep on us every year. What's new? I mean, that's a question you already knew. But we like being under the radar. They were who we thought they were. If you want to crown them, crown them. They still got to play football. And today we showed we play better football.
I think if Mariota plays the way he plays today, and that is a huge if, I think this is the most complete team in that division, the AFC South, and I should not have assumed that the Browns would just steamroll them like I did.
Well, and I think that it helps that A.J. Brown, wide receiver, they've got something in him. They look today like a complete offense, which has been missing in Tennessee. I will say this thing. I don't know where most Browns fans are, but I feel like I've been trying to tell you all offseason that something concerns me about these expectations. And today, it's not that I thought this would happen this way, but in my mind, when you're thinking of possibilities,
it's a really long season, though. Even in a good 10-6 season, you're going to have major ups and downs, and I think this team is going to be a wild ride. I would
point to the team with a shattered offensive line that has a lot of big, funny, interesting surprises down the road.
No team, I think, has had a better month than the Titans because they watched Andrew Luck retire. They watched Nick Foles get hurt. The Texans are absolutely right there, and they could benefit too. But with this win and those injuries, that's huge.
Arthur Smith, OC, Titans OC. He is in that short list for coordinator
Didn't think you were getting Art Smith heat when you said to wrap it up, huh, Dan?
Didn't feel it coming. Let's move on. Let's head to, oh yeah, we love it because it gets crazy at Dignity Health Sports Park.
Single coverage, Keenan Allen out to the right. I formation, Eckler and Watt. Motion man from the left hash, Hunter Henry to the right side of the line. Hand off to Eckler. Up the field. Eckler into the end zone. Touchdown! Chargers win! Chargers win! Have a day, Austin Eckler. His 3rd touchdown of the afternoon.
And give the assist to Watt with a beautiful block up into the hole. Nice screen by Austin Eckler. And this one's over.
That sticks. That move the sticks. We don't need his input here. We got the call from Matt Money Smith. Our boy, KFIAM 640. Austin Eckler crashed into the end zone from 7 yards out in the opening possession of overtime, clinching a 30-24 win for the Chargers over the Colts at fearsome Dignity Health Sports Park. The Bolts recovered after Jacoby Brissett brought the Colts back in regulation with a touchdown and 2-point conversion to force OT. Greg, the Andrew Luckless Colts were looking for a feel-good start to their season, but the Chargers regrouped to close out a game they've lost many times before.
They have a game where they fumble a punt late in the third quarter, where Phillip Rivers throws a fourth-quarter interception, where you give up a 24-9 lead to Jacoby Brissett. You think this is the Chargers being the Chargers, but when they won the coin flip, I thought they would win. I thought whichever team wins that coin flip is going to score, and it's mostly going to be a touchdown. This game could have been in the 40s. Neither defense offered much resistance. Of the games that I watched today, it was the game that I felt I learned the least about both teams because I think they've just really played to expectation. I think they're both going to be really intriguing teams to watch. The Chargers' defense was a little worse than I expected. Marlon Mack ran for 174 yards. Adam Vinatieri missed 3 kicks, including a bunny inside 30 yards that cost the Colts 7 points.
Vinatieri in trouble?
A bunny.
Yeah, don't they call that
bad.
nice little short kick?
It's kind of like taking
bunny?
a haircut, kind of inside baseball talk.
Like it.
How many
I'm new
games
to
a
the
year?
profession, so.
How many games a year is Vinatieri kicking on grass? That's a big difference for a kicker.
He had an injury in
He's 50.
the preseason.
I mean, he's kicked on grass
and
a
he
few
was
times.
he has one of these
He
he has one of these
younger.
massagers which I bought really late at night. One night, I just was inspired.
we
That's
go.
all I'm gonna say.
Oh.
One of these massagers that you really drill into your. He's doing that throughout the game on his leg. That's a bad sign. So he cost them the win. I mean, they could have won the game.
Let's get back to this massager. What's
I would
going
say
on
as
with that
Greg
thing?
solves his desert issues, they're replaced by late night shopping sprees,
those,
putting the Rosenthal
You
family
see
in
the
doubt.
ads for him, those hammers that just like it's like painful, but yeah, it's good on
Making
the
me
back.
more curious.
I like.
Really taking his throne of ease thing a little bit too literally.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck is gone. Jacoby Brissett's there, and he kept the Colts interesting, and they almost stole a game on the road. So
I think he played really well.
yeah, not the feel-good storyline would be that he leads them to the comeback win and all that. They don't get that, but still, there's hope in Indy for sure.
There was limited possessions in this game because the offense kept going back and forth. Brissett wasn't a superstar, but when it mattered, he moved them, and he had one throw on a 3rd and long to Ebron, which would have cut the lead to 2, and Ebron ended up dropping it when he hit the ground in the end zone. But it was just a money throw, and you see Jacoby Brissett make those type of throws. He was a little slow to make decisions here or there, but 21 for 27, 192 touchdowns, and moved them when it mattered. And the line played really well protecting him and getting T.Y. Hilton off, Marlon Mack. So I think there was a lot for both teams to like. I'm a little surprised that the Chargers defense was so easy.
Yeah, they gave up like the 200-plus yards rushing is not what I would have thought. But every time I looked up, I thought Keenan Allen was making a great catch. And also, if you're going to have a game like this from their collection of backs, Austin Eckler on the ground and through the air winds up with, roughly 150 yards. You got 125 on the ground for 6 yards per pop. Every game like this, Melvin Gordon just simply matters less and less because you're getting by. I am a little concerned.
6 yards per pop. That was good.
Per pop, baby. That's inside baseball. I have
very
some
nice.
terminology.
Josh Jackson goes.
Again, I'm new to the job, so
6 for 50. You're right. I mean, their offense looked, as good or better than they did all of last year. They were ready to go from the first snap. It was just the Chargers offense getting whatever they wanted. That would worry me if I'm the Colts. The protection for Phillip Rivers, especially on the tackles, started to fall
Trent
apart
Scott, 2 sacks.
late in the game. But other than that, Melvin Gordon's watching this, and I mean, there's no way they're gonna pay him.
You think he's watching?
He's got to be watching.
Oh, he's watching.
He's in the wilderness right now.
It is impactful to his future.
He might be more. He might be more likely to get traded than return to the Chargers. I don't know.
To who?
Patriots. 9th round pick.
He hasn't sabotaged his value enough yet.
9th round pick in 2074 when they extend the draft.
So salty.
Let's
So
move
accurate.
On 2nd and 5 from the 25, play action, block from Tyron Smith. Deep middle in stride at the 5, walking in for the touchdown. It's Randall Cobb.
Brad Sham, the Sham God, Cowboys Radio Network. Dak Prescott threw for 405 and tied a career high with 4 touchdown passes. The Cowboys rolled up nearly 500 yards on the Giants in a 35-17 win. The Giants scored the first touchdown, but it became very apparent very quickly that the G-Men were badly outclassed. Wes, a lot to like about Big D on both sides of the ball in this one.
Well, this was not your Scott Linehan establish the run and stay with the run offense. This was Kellen Moore getting creative with play action shots down the field, up tempo, spreading the ball around. Very pass heavy offense in which Dak Prescott finished the game with a perfect passer rating. Michael Gallup, one of my favorite breakout candidates, over 150 yards. Amari Cooper, Blake Jarwin, Jason Witten, Randall Cobb all find the end zone. And most of the day, frankly, running wide open. And you wonder how much of that is Kellen Moore's play calling and how much of that is the Giants' defense, which is among the most talent poor in the NFL. But this has to be a best-case scenario if you're a Cowboys fan, especially with Ezekiel Elliott looking at least a step or two slower than normal, which is to be expected after missing August.
There are plenty of fans that they don't follow every single transaction and movement that a team makes in the offseason, and they roll in today, and they don't even know that Kellen Moore is maybe even the new play caller. But if you've been reading about him behind the scenes...
Hey, listen to our podcast, you chump.
Well, that's true. Check in, please, in the in-between months if you care to. But, I mean, this is a huge development. There were a couple quarterbacks today that I thought new coaching and new coordinator helped flip the switch on him a little bit. And I thought Dak Prescott last year was an uninteresting watch. The entire offense was dull. Totally different now.
Well, it's not just Kellen Moore, whom some people have been calling a Sean McVay type of football mind. It's not just him. It's the guys like Michael Gallup are another year better. It's that Travis Frederick, your all-pro center, is back. It's that Randall Cobb is looking really good, like he turned back the clock. He looked good. Jason Witten's back, and I know that, you can time him with the sundial after the catch, but
He even falls slowly now.
it's like
It's
two
actually kind of cool to
skyscrapers
watch.
Yeah.
took flight and are starting to move.
Humanly intriguing.
Did you guys hear what I was hearing there as Wes was talking? Just like shut it down. The team of Wes TL has decided it's the
It's in the
Cowboys.
books.
He loves these Cowboys. I guess the Broncos are in there though.
Broncos are in
but
there.
the excitement that Wes has, that his heart is open
It's
and
real.
it's full, and he's letting America's team in. Who would have thunk it?
What is the weakness with this Dallas Cowboys team? I don't see one.
You were very high in Dallas, even at the end of last year, but especially heading
Almost
into this year.
erotically so, which is a bit disturbing.
He was even asking for Greg's thing that you bought, the thing to
The
massage,
vibrator?
yeah, your leg.
I said it.
I don't know why, but no,
It's
this
like a hammer though.
on the
more pain than
You're messing
pleasure.
with my wires, Greg. The Giants, it was kind of their season in miniature a little bit when you look at the final numbers. Saquon's going to get his 120 yards rushing. He busted off a 60-yarder early. He does some damage out of the backfield, so he's going to pile up yardage. And Evan Ingram's going to get his. And Eli Manning is going to flash occasionally, look okay, but then look terrible other times. And then in the middle of everything, it will always be about where's Danny Dimes. And he comes into the end of this game, gets a few snaps in, loses a fumble, completes 3 passes. That's what this Giants season is going to be about, I think. There's nothing competitive, I don't think. Week one's early to make such a statement, but that feels like what this season's about.
One little sandwich note. When we talked about our group collective sandwich bet of when Daniel Jones would take the field, I had a 2-parter, and part was that he would take the field in week 1 and then start in week 2. I do think Eli Manning probably needs to take a bad step off like a city bus to not start next week, but there is time.
I don't think Eli's taking a city bus ever.
He was not a
The other
disaster. They did not convert a third down until midway through the third quarter, but this was not like Eli holding the offense back. There are plays in which he looks like he's older than the General Sherman tree, but
Or Jason Witten.
and I think you walk away thinking on a team like this, they're just wasting time with Eli Manning at quarterback.
Because
Like,
the
what's
defense,
the purpose?
Unless the story of their season is going to largely be about James Betcher and that defense, which does look so talent poor. And if it is one of the 2 or 3 worst defense in the league, which it looks like it could be, it almost doesn't matter what they put up 470 yards of offense. That didn't matter today.
405 yards passing, a perfect passer rating, and a contract negotiation ongoing. Dak Prescott is in a very good place, and he has never looked better than he looked in this game. I don't think.
One minor footnote.
Yes. Is it about your sandwich prop again?
No.
We don't really care.
No. Well, I know you don't because it's trending poorly for you. So of course it would get less airtime.
Is it?
I don't know, but if anything trends less poorly for Dan, then it's
Just go
off
on.
the show.
Go on, Mark.
As Greg knows, when you grow the beard, sometimes you get more of a rugged look, and I really like Pat Shurmur. What he's doing
He looks
right now.
good.
And I will say he
looks
looks
good.
tougher. He's already well built to be able, but also let's cycle back. Frank Reich, someone's been working on him too. He's a lot of these coaches seem to be they understand. You got to look good on that sideline.
Chuck Pagano.
Yep.
It's a hotness renaissance for head coaches in the NFL. You look at head coaches in the 70s and 80s looked like human disaster zones.
Wheeled out of cardboard boxes. Who are these guys?
Put police tape around the guys in the 70s. I won't even name them, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Now these guys they're grizzled like Kevin Costner types.
The next step is to go back to the Tom Landry era and let's get these guys in 3-piece suits and top hats and all this other business.
Let's stay in the NFC. Let's
fedoras.
change the topic because it's getting weird and move on to a different matchup in the NFC East.
Wentz back.
They got weird.
Wentz steps up. Here comes
They
the
look
rush.
good.
He is going deep, and it is caught. And in for a touchdown, Deshaun Jackson.
Give the people what they want. Give them some more DJ.
Oh, it was down the right
right sideline, and Wentz put it up, and T-Jack cracked it into his hand. And the Eagles have an extra point separating them from the lead. The hero of December 19th, 2010 comes up with another great play.
All right, Merrill. Merrill Reese and Mike Quitt of the Eagles Radio Network. Oh, nostalgia. How beautiful it is. Carson Wentz threw a pair of long touchdown passes to Deshaun Jackson, including that one you heard. And the Eagles overcame a 17-point deficit to beat the Washington Redskins 32-27. Case Keenum looked good early on for Washington, but the Eagles woke up and took control. Mark, D-Jax is a star for the Eagles. Let's snuggle up under a blanket with some popcorn and watch Silver Linings Playbook. Turn back the clock, baby.
Yeah, I mean, this game started in a very weird way, and I think it got on all our radars downstairs where the Redskins, and with Case Keenum running the show, jumped out to this big lead, against a team that I think in Philadelphia might be the best team in the NFC, potentially. You got the Cowboys right there, too, in that division. But to me, it's so strange when star players leave a team. He went to Washington, so it's a revenge game to some degree. Burned out there a bit, went to Tampa Bay and essentially watched his career fizzle out because there's 4,000 articles wondering why he and Jameis Winston
kept making plays, led the league in catches, yards per reception last year.
Yes, but I would say that you did not get the full Deshaun Jackson in Tampa Bay, to the point where last year there was trade rumors and all this other business. Hits the scene today, and it's like he just simply dialed us back to 2010, and it's electric. It's Andy Reid back in the house, but it's not. It's his protege. And I thought his performance changed the game entirely. 2 long, deep shots that essentially woke up the Eagles' offense, and there were a couple throws in this game by Carson Wentz that reminded you he was great last year, but that he's all the way back, the way that he can throw the ball on the move. And they got just enough from their ground game. And in Washington, they felt like the team that game planned very well and got some nice play from Case Keenum. And I think I even said to Greg around halftime, this feels like the game where you're going to get the comeback. The Eagles were primed for the comeback because they didn't get unhooked early on. But the Redskins, all they needed to do, I thought, is that they could, like any team with a lead, control the ground in the third quarter and get to the fourth quarter with that kind of a lead and make a couple big plays. Darius Geis, 10 carries. 18 yards. You didn't get enough from Chris Thompson. They became a one-sided offense in the second half. They didn't get any big plays, and I'd be concerned about them going forward. But they showed up in this game. They did not lay an egg the way that we thought that some teams would.
20-7 at halftime, to me, was the most surprising thing that happened in the entire day. That the Redskins
I agree. It was a very odd first half.
In Philadelphia, the Redskins lost Jonathan Allen pretty early in this game, which has to be big for if their team is going to surprise at all. I mean, their defense has to be better than average, and so to give up a lead like that has to be pretty disappointing. It all counts the same in the end. Like whenever the Eagles are fighting for the wild card or the division race at the end, they can't afford to lose at home to the Redskins, so it's a big win.
And the Redskins did not have Adrian Peterson to help them nurse that lead in the second half because he was inactive. And after the game,
let me read this quote from Jay Gruden, who was probably a little bit annoyed after getting beat and then being asked why All Day wasn't playing. He's a first and second round back, so is Darius. So really, what do we have? About 20 first downs a game. Probably 8 of those are passes. 12 of those might be runs, and Darius can handle those 12. So if we have a game when we think we can run the ball 55 times in a game in an I formation, then sure, I'll get him up. Referring to Adrian Peterson. The writing is on the wall. Adrian Peterson will be on the Patriots in T-minus 24 hours.
Well, and I think we talk about it
did not
points,
need him.
It points
Turn
to the
back
fact that
clock.
Jay Gruden probably did not want to go into this season with Adrian Peterson on the roster, and he has no control over the roster.
Well, doesn't that sound like he's taking shots at someone else in the organization
100%.
that prefers to be running I formations? He's like, let me run.
He doesn't
my
want
team.
Adrian Peterson on this team. It's so apparent.
It's Bruce Allen.
I mean, does he want? I don't know who he wants on this team, though. He said a quote about his brother. I think on the previous show. That is he one of those guys that just. Not his brother, that hates all his quarterbacks. And it's like, is Jay Gruden one of those guys that's like doesn't like his players? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of – you always hear a lot of things in Washington about –
Bill O'Brien we were talking about.
Bill O'Brien,
yeah.
That's right.
I still think Jay has coached better than you would expect for what he's been given over the last half decade.
I agree.
Carson Wentz MVP watch. get on the bandwagon.
I would. I thought the
He
Redskins
looked damn good in this game.
The Redskins, Terry McLaurin, their rookie receiver, 125 yards. I mean, they have a couple players that there were 5 rookies playing on this team that contributed well. So there's something to build. They're not the Dolphins. There's something going on here that is promising.
All right, let's get this over with.
Josh Allen alone in the backfield, takes the snap, looks down the middle, looks left, looks for John Brown, gets separation, makes the catch at the 10, into the end zone, touchdown! There's a flag on the play, touchdown Buffalo. John Brown got separation, but a flag thrown by the deep official down there at the 13-yard line.
And they're going to call defensive pass interference. We're going to decline it, and the Bills are an extra point away from taking this lead.
All right, John Murphy and Eric Wood of the Bills Radio Network.
Eric Wood from my high school, Elder in Cincinnati.
That doesn't matter.
Wes, too celebratory.
Not today, Wes. We'll talk about Eric Wood another day. Josh Allen connects on a 38-yard touchdown pass to John Brown, 3 minutes to play. The Bills overcame 4 early turnovers to rally, wiping out a 16-zip second-half deficit, crushing the Jets. The old Zeuser, Keith Hansis, and everybody else at the Meadowlands. 17-16. New York was in complete control of this game. That is until stud middle linebacker C.J. Mosley exited the game in the third quarter. The Bills scored on each of their final 3 possessions with Mosley on the sideline. And I got to be fair, Adam Gase and that Jets offense that I'm excited about and so many people are excited about was not able to answer the challenge. Just a horrendous loss for the Jets and an amazing way to start the season for a frisky Bills team that will be playing, I sincerely believe this, will be playing meaningful football after Thanksgiving.
Let me ask you one question. I was seeing reports that Devin Singletary wasn't even on the field until like midway through the third or fourth quarter, and then all of a sudden the Bills were moving the ball. Was he a big factor?
That will change, yes. He had 9 touches for 98 yards. Every time the ball was in his hands, whether it was a handoff or as a receiver, he was making guys miss. And Frank Gore, we all love the inconvenient truth, and he's fine as a change of pace guy and maybe near the goal line. But Singletary needs to be part of this offense more. And I cannot stress, when you guys watch this on Game Pass, look at the difference in this game when C.J. Mosley is in and when he's out. Because Mosley played as good a game on defense as I've seen a Jet since Pete Revis.
What was the injury?
It was a groin injury. I don't know the severity of it, but it came out of the game in the third quarter, and that was it. And they just sliced him up. He's also the defensive play caller. And it did this game to me, from a Jets standpoint, 2 ghosts of Jets past and Jets present that conspired to blow a game that you can't blow and might just ruin their season. I'll get to that at the end of this discussion. But they don't have any depth on this team. So when something like a Mosley goes out, someone like a Mosley, and they have good talent, they have frontline talent on both sides of the ball, and when you look at the Jets, like, oh, I could see where this team, they can make a run. But if that goes awry, if someone goes down, they just don't seem to have the depth, and it happened in the secondary too in this game with injuries, but mostly in the middle in this one. And then so that's on Mike McCagnon. That's the ghost of the past. And then Joe Douglas, who everyone that loves the Jets is excited about Joe Douglas, as am I, but they've botched this kicker situation so badly. And Kari Vedvik misses an extra point after a Mosley pick 6 in the first half. It's not a great snap, but misses a 40-yard attempt at the end of the first half. The Jets lose by 1 point. Do the math. So it was a very Jets loss, crushing. I can't tell you how crushing this loss was. My dad, on text, he texted to me and my brother Kevin and my brother-in-law Keith. He said, I just can't take it anymore. My dad has never texted like that. That was the nature of the devastation after an offseason of hype, and that's where
I think there was more hope coming into this week 1 than in a long time for your dad. They had a chance to seal this game late, and the drive fizzled out. Where Sam Darnold in this game, do you feel like he is showing you something, or is there more to go here?
Darnold and Adam Gase was pretty upfront about it after the game. He said there were things for improvements to be made by Darnold, but he was never comfortable in this game because the offensive line got worked over by a very good Bills front 7. I don't want to take away from the Bills here because Josh Allen, who had 4 turnovers in the first half, two fumbles, including a botched snap on a 4th and 1, 2 interceptions. But he pulled it together, made big-time throws in the second half during that comeback on those three drives, scored a touchdown with his legs, which we know he's going to do. And the Bills' defense, when it came time to lock it down and to get stops, to get them back in the game, and then the Jets got the ball back with 3 minutes to play, down 1 point, and struggled. They needed 4 downs to get 10 yards and 1 inch, and then went 4 and out. And that is, yes, Adam Gase's offense needs work. And again, week 1 without preseason and all that, the offensive line, that's something to keep in mind. But the Bills' defense really won this game.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch this game more closely. The Bills' defense.
I bet you are.
We've been talking about it all offseason, how good this Bills' defense could be. But it's really hard to lose a game where you win the turnover margin +3.
Seven times
you have to,
in 20 seasons.
You have to be miserable offensively, and they were. They were as bad as the Bears were the other night. They were as bad as any team really in the league was. They averaged 3.4 yards per pass. So whether that's the line or Darnold or Gase or all of the above,
I think
it starts
everyone
with the line.
takes blame on this.
You can't win a game where you're averaging 3.4 yards per pass.
It's a cruel twist of irony that the man who staked out kicker corner before anyone else was paying attention to this crucial NFL position is now being undone by.
That is the nature of being a Jets fan, Chris Wesley. All these ironies, they are always cruel, and they come down upon you like an avalanche, and I just have to live with that. Le'Veon Bell, by the way, it should be noted, he was not the problem. He didn't have a monster game, but he looked like Le'Veon Bell. You'll see that when you watch the tape, and he also had a touchdown catch and a 2-point conversion on a beautiful scramble and toss by Darnold. Count how many times, if you do a shot, you'll get drunk and end up in the hospital, so don't do that. How many times the Jets throw short of the sticks in this game? I think it was a product.
It's an Adam Gase staple. I mean, if Adam Gase has a reputation, it's way too many short passes and a lot of throws short.
But he was hired to correct that issue from
I
last
wonder, because Darnold did take a lot of deep shots last year under a terrible offensive coordinator. I wonder if there was such concern about the ability to protect him that was part of the game plan. Didn't work. But we'll see in week 2 when the Cleveland Browns come to the Meadowlands on Monday night. Why does it have to be this way, Mark? I don't know. Let's move on.
3rd down and 3 from the Ravens 17. Mark Ingram sets to the right. Jackson wants to throw, has all day, going deep, down the middle of the field, looking for Hollywood Brown. He's got him! Dolphins 30, leg race 20, and he's going to score! Hollywood Brown, his 2nd touchdown on his 2nd catch in the NFL. Oh, my God. 83 yards, and the Ravens are on fire. This is not an evolution. This, to John Harbaugh's words, is a revolution.
Nailed it.
Hello, Hollywood.
Okay. Jerry Sandusky and Jarrett Johnson, WBAL, with the call. Lamar Jackson destroyed the Miami Dolphins. The South Florida native tied a franchise record with 5 TD passes, and the Ravens waltzed to a 59-10 win. This is the NFL. At the stadium formerly known as Joe Robbie. Greg, this was an outrageous mismatch from the jump, but let me now get out of the way. You can do your sexy man dance to your boy Lamar. Are we watching the 2019 version of Patrick Mahomes? Is this his blast off into an amazing year 2?
He's so unique, I wouldn't compare him to anyone. I didn't know you think of sexy when I do a little dance.
Highly erotic.
I mean,
You're attempting sexy.
It was
I'm
definitely not attempting it. It was as sexy a football game as you could.
This is a weird podcast.
As you could have, because they get out there, and I give their entire organization so much credit for coming up with a plan to build around Greg Roman with running backs, with Mark Ingram and Gus Edwards and Justice Hill, and then the speed that they have on the outside. First play of the game is a Mark Ingram 49-yard run. The next run is an 11-yard run. They have a direct snap to Ingram in that first drive. The long touchdowns that they had are set up by the play action because they're bringing a second safety down into the box. They're only having 1 deep. Teams are saying, beat us deep, Lamar Jackson. We dare you. And everyone's going to be honking that, okay, this is the Dolphins. Fair point. But the throws that Lamar Jackson made are beautiful throws against any NFL competition. There were a few tosses into a bucket over the top of the defense. One to Mark Andrews, the touchdown that we saw to Hollywood Brown. Even this first touchdown to Hollywood Brown, he hits him right in stride on a slant. Everyone played about as perfect as possible. It was a smart move by them to schedule, UC Davis for week 1. They'll have to play like a Division I competition later. But this, it's a nice little win, 42-3 at halftime.
Let's hear from Lamar Jackson, who, of course, there's been a lot of made of, he can run, and he made some plays as a rookie, but is this guy a complete quarterback? Well, he was feeling himself after the game, as he should be.
You were going to throw the ball. Do you think you improved people that you were throwing the ball?
Probably not, but not bad for a running back. But yeah, offensive line did a great job. I barely had pressure. Receivers did a great job of getting open, catching the ball, scoring a touchdown. That's what it's all about, and that's what we did today.
That's how you make people shut up.
He's got so much. I think he's just got that confidence that makes people around him like him. And if he has more performances like this, I don't know.
Here's my question to you.
It's too exciting.
Were the Ravens so impressive in this game that I should make them, or Mark or whoever, the number 1 Game Pass choice despite the presence of the miserable Dolphins?
I think so.
I think sponsor this.
I think that they made a blowout entertaining. At halftime it's 42-3, and by then the game's over. But yeah, there were so many great plays. Mark Andrews, Justice Hill. There was a lot to kind of unpack. Earl Thomas with a big interception. Ryan Fitzpatrick had no chance in this game. The Ravens defense played almost as well as the offense. They outgained them 643-200. At one point, it was 300-50, and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That's a disgrace.
I honestly thought Ryan Fitzpatrick, and maybe I have to watch the game a little closer. I thought he played kind of well. I really did, and that's how bad the rest of the Dolphins were.
I think it's a great sign that you could get this kind of a game from Lamar Jackson and the offense when Lamar Jackson is not facing a lot of pressure. And Dolphins are not. When you're putting up 600-plus yards in the NFL and this kind of outpouring of points, it was halftime. They put up 42. Cleveland's getting buried. And I just started to think to myself, it is time to shift towards personal goals and away from the achievements of other men, because this is not working out for the vicarious person watching television right now.
It's going to be a
Start
sleepless
taking
night.
a ton of HGH, start lifting, just get
Don't do
jacked, just become a totally different person.
Why?
This is not
I don't know
working.
if athletic goals are the personal ones
at
you
this
should
point,
really
it's
go
just
after.
this whole thing. It's like it is a vast joke, but the Ravens I don't know how you could author a more dangerous, compelling start.
The Dolphins, it's terrible. And sleepless nights for Gloria Estefan, all of the Miami Sound Machine, and the rest of the ownership group. This is the type of situation, it cannot happen. You can't have your team get to the point. I don't care about your organic fish tank. You cannot let it get to the point where you have people pay to see your team and come to your stadium, and then you're down 49-3 early in the third quarter.
Josh Rosen played the third quarter, by the way. That's not any hope. He's not starting.
You are
He's going to play a lot of third quarters, it sounds like.
Your number 1 goal as an organization, you cannot take hope away from the fan base. And I've said that over the years about my Jets. I've said it about your Browns, Mark. You can't do that. And you could fish tank and maybe in a couple of years end up being good, and then everybody will look back and say, that was the right move. I don't buy it. I don't think this is how you run a sports team.
I hate this trend over the last half-decade that the only thing that matters is putting yourself in the best position possible to ultimately win a championship. That's not the only thing that matters. Only one team per year can win a championship, and maintaining your fans' interest throughout a season matters. Playing interesting football matters. It's worth something. It's
People
valuable.
pay good money, the money that even things they can't afford, to come see you. You can't put this out there. Be better.
Browns fans the issue, though, is Browns fans, I think, would disagree, right?
No.
I'm not saying it doesn't work necessarily.
But you guys can go ahead. Go.
No, I'm saying the Browns have not guaranteed themselves a championship by tanking.
No, but they're happy they have their
but
Stephen Ross.
You don't have to tank to rebuild.
Yeah, that's,
you do not.
I
Teams
agree
for
with that.
100 years have been rebuilding without tanking.
This isn't the NBA.
I have no problem, though, and this is a disaster after week 1 for the Dolphins, with trying something different in the NFL, especially for certain teams that have struggled for decades, and that is the Dolphins. They've really never been a remarkable team. I like the idea of trying something different in terms of team planning. My problem is that you're asking a coaching staff and a flock of players who aren't here for the full rebuild. They're going to get rid of half of these players that are being asked to toil week to week. It's not a personal goal. You're involving hundreds of people, and it's a big ask.
My old boss, Mike Florio, reported that agents plural, received, texts and calls from their players after this game saying we want out of
It's embarrassing for them.
That's not how it should be. And I'm not putting that on the players. I'm saying you've created such a bad situation that's how your locker room is. I mean,
it's what happens
tough.
when you
I
trade
feel bad for Handsome Hank. I feel bad for
Davenport.
Dolphins fans.
It's what happens when you trade for the guy who was like couldn't be the Texans left tackle and just put him in your lineup in week 1.
All right, let's move on.
2nd and 10 from the Falcons, 19. Dalvin Cook is the tailback, Thielen in motion to the right. Now in motion back to the left, handoff Dalvin. Sprints out to the left. Gets a block from Thielen. Walks into the end zone. Touchdown! Dalvin Cook with the Vikings' 2nd touchdown today. And it's 13-0 Vikings.
Paul Allen, the Vikings radio network. Dalvin Cook went off for 111 and 2 touches. Kirk Cousins threw the ball just 11 times. And the Vikings defense handled the rest. A dominant 28-12 win over the Falcons at home. Anthony Harris had 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery for the Vikings D, which had no problem shutting down Matt Ryan, Donta Freeman, and the rest of the Falcons offense. Wes, after last year's disappointment, this had to be an ultra-satisfying start for Skol.
Yeah, Cousins only throws it 10 times, and after the game, Adam Thielen says that Dalvin Cook, you're seeing that he's not only a great running back, he might be the best one in the NFL.
Best.
I don't know if I'd go that far with Zeke Elliott still in the league and Saquon Barkley, but Dalvin Cook has looked, since preseason started, like a different running back this year in Gary Kubiak's scheme. I think it's perfect for him. This looks like a different offense, and the defense looked phenomenal. The Falcons couldn't do anything. A miserable game for the Falcons, who Caleb McGarry, the right tackle who missed most of August, just looked about 3 steps too slow to be dealing with Danielle Hunter. They rotated him with Tyson Brallow, and it's to be expected that a rookie's going to look slow against Danielle Hunter, who's one of the fastest defensive ends in the league. And then their other rookie, Chris Lindstrom, first-round pick. After the game, Jay Glazer reported that they fear he fractured his foot.
Oh, no.
So you've got the biggest question to me about the Atlanta Falcons going into the season was their offensive line, and it's an even bigger question heading into week 2.
Tough week 1 ask to go to Minnesota and face this veteran defense, but I'm sort of floored that they didn't score until 9 minutes left in the game, like the Atlanta Falcons under Matt Ryan. I don't know, like how
unusual.
Did Matt Ryan look like Matt Ryan?
Turnovers, but turnovers caused by pressure.
I mean,
Matt Ryan did not look like the best version of Matt Ryan. No, it was not a good performance. And Xavier Rhodes, who, Greg, you questioned because he did have a bad year last year. That's fair to say that. But he shut down Julio Jones today until garbage time.
I mean, this feels like a Mike Zimmer dreamland fantasy from outer space. Like you have your quarterback throwing the ball 10 times.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's what Kirk Cousins wants, but he's got to like it a lot better than what was happening last year, where he was running for his life and there was no flow to the offense.
Said he hasn't thrown that few passes since Pop Warner.
Well, Kyle
That's
Rudolph.
a lot for Pop Warner, by the way. That's an air raid for Pop Warner. But
Kyle Rudolph, after the game, again, another Elder High School graduate, Panthers.
That's fine.
Wow, there's a lot.
Said we're going to celebrate the NFL's 100th year by setting the game back 100 years with our offense.
I don't know. I mean, it worked today. Is that what it's always going to be like?
No, but Cousins. Dan, you called this a top 5 3-1 offense.
Yes, I did. And you know what? I think they kind of went into cruise control, it seems like, from a distance
this
once
game,
they got to 28.
This game was in hand in the first half.
What about Devonta Freeman? Was it baked into all the other issues?
He had a bad fumble, and I do think that the offensive line was such an issue. And you're playing a good defense, too. I didn't get enough of a view of Devonta Freeman to make any grand proclamations about how he looked.
All right, let's move on.
Play clock at 8 as Goff takes a shotgun snap, looking left all the way. He throws to the goal line. He's got Tyler Higbee. Touchdown, LA! Goff and Higbee with contract extensions this week connect for the score. With 6:37 to go, it's 29-20, LA.
That's our boy JB Long of ESPN 710. Good dude, Wes's neighbor, and plugged in. He's not a guy that shows up with the lunch pail on Sunday and doesn't know what happened the 6 days before.
No, he's on it.
Jared Goff connected on a touchdown pass to Tyler Higbee. Goff's only scoring throw on a quiet day. And Todd Gurley flashed when the Rams needed him most in a 30-27 win over the Panthers in Charlotte. Greg, Gurley didn't carry the load for the Rams on Sunday, but this was still a positive for a running back who needed one.
It was so positive. I think the Rams couldn't have drawn up a better win because you go on the road, you beat a really good NFC team, and you do it by pounding the rock late, which I know they want to do. They had 166 yards. They faced some adversity. They give up a lead that looked to be in hand, only a 3-point lead in the fourth quarter, and they give the ball to Todd Gurley, who didn't look great in the first half by any means. The running game, their offense, everything looked like they hadn't played in the preseason. But Gurley ripped off 2 runs on what was really the decisive touchdown drive where he looked like the old Todd Gurley. Then there's a third down where he has one man to beat. He has to use that vision and patience that we've seen out of him. He does it. The Panthers, go right back down the field, cut it to 3 again. What do? They just hand the ball to Todd Gurley 2 more times, and he closes out the game. And I think for a team that came into the week with offensive line questions and Gurley questions, are loving winning what was sometimes an ugly game, but our 2 teams I think are really talented, and winning on the road is pretty special.
Can I ask you a question? That's good for the Rams, and if I look at a bright spot for the Panthers, we're throwing around best running back in the NFL right now. Is it me or does Christian McCaffrey, it's talked about a lot in fantasy, but in real life I feel like he's not brought into this discussion enough.
Well, that's because of Greg.
200-plus total yards, 10 catches, 81 through the air, 19 rushes at 6.7 for carry with 2 touchdowns.
What
more does this guy need to do?
He's a superstar.
I thought it was one of, if not the best game he's ever played, which is a strong statement because he's had other stat lines like this, but I felt like a lot of this was on his own. We always joke about whether he can run between the tackles. That was the question going into last year. But I don't know. I think he might be going to another level of his ability to run between the tackles because he ran over a couple people, including on the goal line, a play that really reminded me of Alvin Kamara, where he showed great balance. He took a strong tackle at the 2-yard line and then just kept driving his legs forward. He had, I don't know what the percentage is, it's over 60% of the team's yards. I mean, they were held to 343. He had 210 himself.
What was the old Deion Jordan line? It looked like somebody inflated his shoulder pads.
Right. He's a big boy.
He looks like a He-Man figure.
McCaffrey.
Cam Newton averaged about 6 yards attempt, didn't throw a touchdown. How did he look?
I thought he looked good in the first half. The Panthers outplayed him, the Rams, and were down by 10 at halftime, and Newton kind of seemed like he was getting rid of the ball quickly, did not play that great in the second half. Their offensive line, I thought, was a problem. We keep saying this in every game, but their communication, it's a lot of new guys or guys in different places. They were missing Greg Little, who had a concussion as well, and there were a lot of plays where Wade Phillips and the Rams front did stunts, and they just were not picking up the right guy. Like Christian McCaffrey was trying to block Dante Fowler, or Clay Matthews just got in free with no one blocking him, and they just seemed like they were all scrambled. It was a good day for Wade Phillips.
So Curtis Samuel, 3 for 32, and they said that Cam Newton didn't even try a deep shot downfield. Is there anything going on with
It wasn't
arm?
deep, but there were 2 plays to Samuel where he could have had a much better fantasy day, and those were 2 throws that Newton missed. They were touch throws. No, his arm looked strong. He had a 3rd and long out across the field that looked like vintage Cam, but it wasn't his best game.
I see 3 rushes for -2 yards. I guess he's just a little bit of a different player now. Or maybe they're just working him in slowly. I remember that happening last year.
That's a really good point. They didn't even sniff trying to do a called run for him at all, which is a very different Cam Newton than we saw in the past. It was also the quietest Aaron Donald game I've ever seen, just about, and they still win. There's no offense in the first half, a lot in the second. And if people like me were wondering if the Rams were going to do some different stuff this year, they didn't. I mean, they played those 3 receivers every single down, basically. They didn't play Darrell Henderson, the rookie, at all. Malcolm Brown got good run as Gurley's.
They were one of the teams that we needed to see a regular season game from to put some of these off-season questions and narratives.
These 2 teams,
put it away.
These 2 teams kind of look like 2 teams that are already, okay, these are the teams we see. They're kind of what we expect, and I think they're both going to be good. Brian Burns looked good for the Panthers.
All right, let's move on. We have our first tie of the season.
Murray in the gun. Cardinals down 24-22. Johnson now wide to the right, so it's an empty backfield. Cardinals can tie it here. Shotgun snap. Murray back to pass. Throws to the left. It is caught by Kirk into the end zone, and we're tied at 24. Some Murray magic down the stretch for Arizona.
Never a doubt.
Dave Pash, and you know him. He's the Wolfman, Ron Wolfe of the Arizona Cardinals Radio Network. Kyler Murray rallied the Cardinals back from 24-6 down to force overtime. That's the two-point conversion you just heard. And Arizona and Detroit traded OT field goals, a 27-27 tie. Kiss your sister. Doesn't feel good, does it? Nobody likes to kiss their sister. Murray and Kyle Kingsbury looked completely lost for 3 quarters, Wes. But then they got it going.
Their longest gain late in the third quarter was 12 yards. Cliff Kingsbury said the first half was one of the worst displays of offensive football he's ever seen. Kyler Murray had 4 batted passes in this game. Kirk Cousins led the NFL last year with 17 all season. So this is an issue. Then again, the Lions let the Cardinals back in the game. Kyler Murray looked great in the fourth quarter and overtime, and he showed, I believe, impeccable touch and accuracy on a couple of deep balls. To me, the turning point in this game was Larry Fitzgerald on a play that nobody saw because they hadn't tuned into the game yet, sold out for a ball.
Unbelievable.
30 yards downfield when they could not move the ball at all. He just absolutely sold out on a dive like he's been doing for 15 years, and it brought life to the Cardinals. It gave his quarterback confidence, and it's Larry Fitzgerald doing Larry Fitzgerald.
It was such a quintessential diving Fitzgerald play where he goes all out, belly flops, his 2 elbows hit the turf first. He holds onto the ball because he never drops the ball, and he makes a big play when the team needs him most.
It is a tie, but if I'm a Cardinals fan and we have a friend, Jason Zumwalt, who we were actually, Dan and I, texting with, where the 3 of us were discussing
a
triple
pact
earth removal scenario. But I think Zumwalt and other Cardinals fans should feel encouraged because sometimes a tie is a win. Because what this did in a way
exuberant.
It buried a week's worth. They were down 24-6. Let's say it just had wound up, finished right there. Everyone is telling you that everything that they plan to do this offseason and Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, as you call them, K1 and K2, is a gigantic disaster and needs to be recycled immediately. Instead, all those stories and probably a ton of articles, I specialize in this, you write the article, you're 1,800 words in, and the game changes, and you've wasted your time, and you've wasted everyone else's time. Not anymore.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, how many of those articles were being, cooked up by these hot takers, and they're out because they came back and tied the game, and there's some hope.
This week.
It was so bad. The performance was so bad through 2.5 quarters that even if you're a fan in the back of your mind, you're thinking, is Kyler Murray too short? Is Cliff Kingsbury in over his head?
Have we drafted a quarterback in the first round 2 years in a row that will not click in NFL circles?
There were Cardinals fans tweeting me, I guess we'll be drafting another quarterback number 1 overall next year.
Wow, these are
Calm down.
This is week 1, and this game especially feels like a week 1 game where they're 2 offenses that haven't played under their current coordinators at all. It's a rookie quarterback, and the fourth quarter is so bizarre. I don't know if that's fatigue or if it's a coaching failure by the Lions or what it is, but it just I want to see these 2 teams again. It's a massive disappointment.
I'm with you, Greg,
Lions.
but
for the Lions, they have to stack wins, and you got to win that game when you're up 24-6. There's no excuse.
I just want to say though that there's a huge portion of NFL fans that are not baked into 18 seasons where they do freak out over week 1. And if you watch your team,
out. Patriots fans are no different. Everyone freaks out week to week.
It's not every fan's job to not respond emotionally to week 1. It just isn't. It's just they go do their work week and they come in. If you see your team get torched,
of course,
you're going to respond emotionally. You're not going to have a stoic approach to it.
I'm talking about my approach of what these teams are going to be. I don't know if this tells us anything about the Cardinals. Did they show you anything that was just creative? That's different?
No.
I don't like what the Lions did down the stretch.
An 18-point lead
at home.
And we talked about this on the preview episode. This is the Lions' upcoming schedule: home Chargers, at Eagles, home Chiefs, at Packers, home Vikings.
Got to win that game.
You have to win this game. This was such an important game.
Or you don't.
Sometimes a week 1 game isn't just one game. It can really hurt your season because it sets you off on a really bad trajectory. A loss isn't as bad as a tie isn't as bad as a loss, but this was pretty damn bad if you're a Lions fan.
Patricia's had a few of these types of games.
It's painful because I can't overstate how much the Cardinals were outclassed. It looked like they were in a lower league than the Lions for 3 quarters. And the one positive for the Lions is they have a stud tight end in T.J. Hawkinson. This guy is the truth.
Big game.
All right, let's move on.
1st and 20 now from the 44 of the Bengals. In motion is Vanette. Back out to the right side. Russell from the shotgun with Penny in the backfield. Play fake to him. Russell has time. Rolls. Stops. Down the middle. Lockett has the catch. He is in. Touchdown. Seahawks. Play action by Russell. Rolls right. And they pull this one out of the bag of tricks. A 44-yard strike to no E. Tyler Lockett, and I was just about to ask Dave, how many catches does Tyler have today? He's now got one for 44 and a touch.
Steve Rabel, the Seahawks Radio Network. Ooh, jaunty. Seahawks Radio Network. Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, 44 yards to pay dirt. First play of the fourth quarter. The Seahawks withstood a career day from Andy Dalton in a 21-20 victory at the Clink. Is it still the Clink? It's still the Clink, right?
It'll always be the Clink.
Okay, good. Dalton threw for 418 yards. That is a career high. John Ross caught 2 touchdowns. How about that, Wes? But the Seahawks were able to hold on and get it done. Mark, not the most dominant effort. I think people predicted the Seahawks winning this one going away, but they won.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe in Greg's picks column, did you get the exact score to this game, or am I thought you had this very tight.
Goose said that, our social media friend. I didn't confirm it. I had a 1-point win. I know that for the Seahawks.
Well, I would say you came closer than most. And I've been really rough on the Bengals, and I would look at them right now, and again, we get it. A lot can change, but in a tough environment against a team that has never lost a game in September at home since 2010, the Bengals showed up, number one on defense. I thought that they played one of the best, and they were good on defense before the injuries hit last year. And they seemed to me to come in, and it was guys like Carlos Dunlap, Nick Vigil, Dre Kirkpatrick played a great game, Sam Hubbard. They put the clamps on Seattle early, and Andy Dalton, obviously someone that historically, the ceiling, we put it right at the middle of the league, at the Dalton line, and everyone's kind of surpassing him. I think that with Zach Taylor, I saw a completely different player in one area. He got rid of the ball quickly in this game, and suddenly he winds up with 418 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it wasn't perfect, but they didn't have A.J. Green, and I feel like the benchmark scenario for the Bengals in the past is when A.J. Green's not on the field, Dalton starts to do Dalton things and the team melts. There was a scenario here, 3 drives in a row, where I think they gave the game away. If you're Cincinnati, there was in a pouring rain, Dalton lost the ball on a windup. Then they had Randy Bullock miss a field goal he should have hit, and then Gio Bernard got stuffed on downs when they should have scored points. There are 3 red zone drives in this game where the Bengals came away with no points. That hurt him a lot. And then Russell Wilson, and you got DK Metcalf, who wound up with 89 yards, and a big 42-yarder that set up a Chris Carson catch and run for a touchdown. And he had another big leaping grab. You saw his size and his ability as an athlete made a difference in this game. Seattle, through a lot of weird weather. It was pouring rain at one point, and I loved it. I love seeing this insane. It was kind of like you've been there in the summer when you get caught out in the woods and then just suddenly the rain is on you and all your clothes are soaking wet and you have no idea where your house is. That kind of rain. And then suddenly it's like a bright sunlight 2 minutes later.
I have no idea the scenario you just said.
I'm just saying it was
It's been a while. We
fantastic.
live in Los Angeles, but yes,
it was a cool game where I thought the elements played a factor at one point. And, this was not the greatest Russell Wilson game of all time. They put a lot of pressure on him, but they fought out in Cincinnati with close out a few more drives, and this is not the team that I thought they were that's going to go 4-12 and get smacked every week.
What an encouraging
game. What are you laughing about?
It was encouraging.
That was quite an impressive filibuster by Mark there.
What? Well, no, because you know what? Here's the thing, because sometimes in football games you can't see the rain. With the way the camera angle is, they had the camera.
I think he was talking more of the whole thing. But
but they had the camera at field level, and Dalton at one point is just standing there, and you can see each individual downpour drop. And I thought it was a cool cinematography
It did reignite
moment.
your love of football after the early game.
That is important.
I love any game. It changed what I thought about the Bengals.
I've been I'm a Bengals fan now.
They made me a fan for a little bit.
Well,
they
Ryan Yunt
certainly
downstairs.
outclassed the other team from
Ryan
Ohio.
Yunt, one of our producers for NFL Network downstairs. Is
Huge
Ryan a
Bengals
producer?
fan.
Yep.
Yes.
Ryan Yunt.
He really got after you over some comments you've made on this podcast about Cincinnati being a low-rent organization.
I called them a mom and pop, basically a mom and pop corner store selling, 99-cent noodles and
he
cheap
took
$4 red wine. He didn't like that.
He took this Sunday with the Browns travesty as a chance to get even, and I saw the rage in your eyes.
No, you know what?
That was early, though.
It is every Sunday in our newsroom, someone's going to come up and take a shot, or they do the thing. So sorry, what happened?
That's almost worse.
But you know what? I deserved it because I had been ripping into his team all summer, and they showed up today.
I noticed all those names you listed on defense. They were on Marvin Lewis's defense last year when they were terrible. And the offensive line, we thought they were tattered. No A.J. Green. This has to be, for this coaching staff, if you're a Bengals fan, you are truly encouraged to put on that kind of performance.
I was going to say, I know it's not the Legion of Boom in Seattle anymore, but he played
on the road.
Dalton played 10 years with
career high.
10 years with Marvin and never threw for 410 yards without A.J. Green there.
Absolutely, but I think they should be. We had no idea what we were going to see from either side of the ball from Cincinnati. Seattle talked about how they'd be tough to prepare for because their defensive coordinator is Lou Anarumo, who I think we've mentioned about 3 times.
What a fun name!
He's been hired, and they were good on both sides. That said, I think Bengals fans, if there was a Bengals fan that was a host of this podcast, they'd be saying, same old Bengals.
Yeah, stop.
I know.
They were just saying heartbreak because until the fourth quarter, this was similar in dominance in yardage as any beatdown in the entire NFL. 356 yards at one point the Bengals had to 125 for the Seahawks. They were beating them like a drum. They were physically dominating them, and you would love to come away with.
Well,
the win.
it's those. To me, it was the defense held up as long as they could because you're always going to get the Russell Wilson surge near the end. It was the offense not closing those drives. But we talked about this team as a 3 or 4 win outfit with no hope, and I see the opposite going forward. We'll see.
For the record, Greg, there will never be a Bengals fan as a host of this podcast.
Well, who knows? What if we pass it on to
it's
our
Greg's
children?
inner conscious coming out, the Freudian thing again.
What?
Somebody else, not me, will be hosting.
I said if there was. I meant like in another universe where one of us was a Bengals fan. But if you wanted to, spin it forward, what if, Johnny Wesseling, who takes over in 2042, decides he likes the Bengals?
I can assure you that no Wesseling will be a Bengals fan on this podcast.
All right, let's move on.
Controlling father alert.
Foreboding.
And here they are, Ford on one side, Bosa on the other, Buckner and Armstead inside. Winston drops out of the shotgun. Ford and Bosa all over him. Intercepted! Akella Witherspoon going back the other way! Touchdown! San Francisco! How many interceptions they have last year?
They had 2.
How many pick six they have today?
2.
2 on opening day, and a third interception by Nazachu earlier in the game. 2 pick sixes in one day.
Greg Papa and Tim Ryan of the 49ers Radio Network. Yes, Richard Sherman and Akella Witherspoon return 2 interceptions for touchdowns by Jameis Winston. Robbie Gould hit 3 field goals. The Niners 31-17 win over the Bucks on Sunday. Jimmy Garoppolo in his first game back from ACL surgery threw for a $166 and a touchdown. He looked okay. He also threw a pick 6. But to me, the story of this game was Jameis Winston, Bruce Arians, of course, and his Bucks debut. There's this idea that it will be Arians that gets Winston over the hump, and perhaps that will happen because this is just one game. But on Sunday, this looked just more of the same. Winston looks good sometimes. Other times he looks reckless, and his mistakes kill his team, and that's why this Bucks team has not won in the years that Jameis Winston has been there.
I think that's the most disappointing way to start, with a new coach or a new season is when you just keep repeating the same mistakes that you had
Just
under
got to
the
be
old
cleaner
coach or the old season. Because the Bucks defense did a great job. They prevented they kept the 49ers to 256 yards, and they scored 7 points on their own. So you can't ask for a better performance of the Bucks defense. Jameis Winston lost the game with those throws.
I know that for most of the game, the 49ers offense didn't look that impressive. Did their defense look good?
It gets kind of they look fine. I don't think it was a great effort on either side of the ball, really. I don't think it was an incredible showing by the Niners. I think.
Sorry for giving you this game, by the way. Thanks for falling on that grenade.
Yeah, somebody had to take it. I want to tell you something about this game. In the first half, there were 4 fumbles, 2 interceptions. 1 block punt, 4 touchdowns negated by penalty.
That you don't see that every day or ever.
Preseason week 5.
I believe it might have been 5 fumbles.
Four
fumbles.
touchdowns negated by penalty. Cameron Braid had 2 great touchdowns on one drive.
Yes, and George Kittle had the other 2.
It's crazy.
Unbelievable, and 12 total penalties in the first half. It was a very sloppy game, and neither team to me jumped out and flashed as a team to get wildly excited about at this stage. But I guess that was just the storyline for me, that Winston, what would have really been nice for Winston here in week 1 would have been to have a game where he just plays, like I said, a clean game, makes good decisions, doesn't put his team behind the 8 ball, doesn't have turnovers that change the complexion of the game. And it was like we were watching the same guy over the past 3 years.
The thing that we said about Tampa Bay was, you're coming off a season or 2 where, from a yardage standpoint, how could you at best please try to match what Todd Monken and Dirk Cutter did, where you are pouring out 400 yards a game. There were mistakes, so come on, Bruce Arians, reduce the Jameis Winston mistakes and keep the production from guys like O.J. Howard and Chris Godwin, who we've been talking about for 90, 120 days. He's held to 53 yards. I mean, Jameis Winston, Blake Bortles level turnover scenario over the past couple of years. To me, this guy's playing for his future. I don't know why you'd possibly, if this continues, go into next year with the same thing.
Well, of course, he's on the last year of his contract, and he's going to need to have a good year, a very good year, to come back. And so far, he hasn't shown that that's going to happen. This is one of the rare, or almost the only 49ers win under Kyle Shanahan where the defense led the way. So if nothing else, that I know it was ugly, but that's a positive. Bosa got a sack, Armstead got a sack, D Ford got a sack. So some of the guys they picked up showed up, and they move on, needing better Jimmy G play.
How about we move on? All right, it is time for 2-minute drill presented by Oikos 000. All right, we talked a little bit about rookies on the podcast. Let's dig into it some more. The rookies that jumped out to you in week 1. Mark, get us going.
Well, I want to go back to A.J. Brown. And, the Titans, I feel like they drafted endless receivers, and none of them seem to crack through and make a big difference. 100 yards, and it matters because they didn't have a single other receiver with more than 5 yards or 1 catch in this game. So he showed up, a couple big catches, and he got them through to the point right before Tennessee tired out Cleveland's defense, to the point where Derrick Henry and Delaney Walker and everyone else just popped off.
How about you, Chris Wessling?
I just want to say Tony Romo compared your boy A.J. Brown to a young Anquan Bolden. That's high praise.
I don't know if he's my boy
2-minute drill presented by Oikos.
T.J. Hawkinson breaks the record for most yards by a tight end in his NFL debut. 60-year-old record held by the inimitable Monty Stickles.
That guy could ball.
It's rare to see a rookie tight end go to the Pro Bowl because it's one of the positions that takes the longest to develop.
You're going there already.
This guy, he's a smooth operator. He is a natural football player, and it would not surprise me at all if he's in the Pro Bowl.
He looks like one of those guys, the first time, like the first or second catch, you're like, oh, wow, this is a guy.
Yeah,
that's a guy. You can
he's
trust
nice.
this guy
Forever.
How about you, Greg?
I'm going to go with Nick Bosa, who's a reminder, like A.J. Brown, like Hollywood Brown, too, that we get too caught up in what happens in August. None of these guys practiced or didn't practice well, supposedly, throughout training camp. Nick Bosa, in his first game, has a sack, has a tackle for loss, has 3 quarterback hits, was healthy, played close to 40 snaps, and caused havoc. And that is huge news for the 49ers. If he's on the field, he's going to change their defense.
Pretty good.
Good stuff, guys. That was the 2-minute drill presented by Oikos 000. All right, before we get to Sunday Night Football, the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's talk about a former Steeler who is now a New England Patriot. We didn't get a chance, obviously, to break this down over the weekend when it broke on Saturday. But yes, after, and we don't need to go into the soap opera that led to the end of Antonio Brown with the Raiders. We all know it was a disgrace the way it all played out. Brown gets his release, and then a short time later, he signs with the New England Patriots, a 1-year deal worth up to $15 million, including a $9 million signing bonus, $10 million guaranteed, and $5 million in incentives. And as we record this, the Patriots have their Sunday Night Football game well in hand against the Steelers. And It seems like everything is going very well for New England once again on the throne of ease. But one thing that they lost, and I can tell you this because if you saw our text chain on Saturday afternoon, one thing they lost in this was Chris Wessling. Wes, you're very upset about this. Share your thoughts about the move.
I find it repugnant. The whole thing from the Raiders angle with Antonio Brown to the Patriots brushing aside everything Bill Belichick has ever believed about team building, to sign this guy who has done more to undermine the team concept than any football player I've ever seen in my life. I find it repugnant. The Patriots waited for Drew Rosenhaus to bait the mother mongoose out of the hole. They slithered up to the nest. They unhinged their ravenous jaw, and they swallowed Antonio Brown whole.
I love it.
And to this point,
in my veins,
the NFL has no issue with the snake entering the den. They have no idea how to deal with this brand of social media sabotage that Antonio Brown unleashed to get his way, to get out of a contract that made him the highest paid receiver in football. And I think a strong leader in the NFL would investigate how this happened, these actions, and put a premium on integrity and competitiveness.
Think about if you're the Steelers, by the way, and Greg, you're going to get your side of this, of course, as well. And Mark, you could chime in as well. Think about it from the Steelers' perspective. They own the rights to Antonio Brown, the player. They could no longer deal with him. His personality was such that they had to part ways, they believed, with the best wide receiver in football. And they had the control of his contract, so they send him via trade to the Raiders. And that's where it just feels, I'm thinking about it from a Steelers perspective, how this all now works out, that the one thing you have left is you could decide where to send this guy. And the one place, obviously, you would never send him is the Patriots. And Antonio Brown, by sheer force of will, and I know we tend now in the media and fans to always side with the player whenever there's any type of contract dispute. But to me, this showed me when this can go wrong. And I think that I agree with Wes in the sense that this didn't feel right. This did not pass the smell test that he is now a member of the Patriots. And a lot of people.
But if he was a member of the Browns, then it'd be fine. It wouldn't matter. Like because he was going to sign with some team. He had multiple teams that were interested.
I don't think from my perspective, I don't think you should be able to through just abhorrent behavior and doing everything that's against what it should be to be a professional. I don't care what industry you work in, and then be allowed to get your way the way he did here. And I'm not as down on the Patriots from the stance of what an ugly thing to do. I think it's more on Brown's side, the way this worked out and how he gets what he wants and everybody else gets left hanging except for your Patriots.
I just wonder, though, it's not like he had a master plan to make less money and lose his job with the Raiders. I mean, I don't think that was –
Can we talk about the Chris Mortensen report?
Sure, that he
sought out social media experts to find out how to gain his release from the
Raiders. So that at the point that we got to late last week, where things had already gone pretty sour between him and the Raiders, and really it's just from his side. At that point, Chris Mortensen reported that he contacted a social media expert, basically, wanted to use social to maybe get booted off the team, which is wild. It's unprecedented. The video that he did where Gruden is talking was the production value was incredible. The fact that he put Gruden's voice on it, it's just almost mind-numbing. I just feel like, hey,
it's also wiretapping infractions.
Right, we're living in the Truman Show. But here's the reason why the league isn't gonna look at anything, because the Raiders at this point are happy with the result that they don't have to pay him anymore. They're not happy with how
I don't care about that.
Right.
I'm talking about the integrity of the game.
But what could you stop? You can't stop.
You cannot allow this guy to go wherever he wants. You cannot allow. An hour after he's released, Drew Rosenhaus has an agreement with the Patriots. It stinks to high heavens. The Patriots tried to give up a first-round pick for this guy, and the Steelers said, no, you're our rival. We're not going to do it. So they find a workaround. I don't believe he ever had any intention of working for
it's not like
Raiders.
The Patriots are those social media experts. It's not like the Patriots had anything to do with whatever is going on with Antonio Brown in his own life or with the Raiders or his interactions.
You don't know that. You don't know what they've been saying to Drew Rosenhaus behind the scenes.
Well, to be fair, I mean,
but you don't either. I don't just throw out random accusations.
If we're going to say that
it's not random at all.
If it's a leap to question some of the timing elements here, then it's also a leap to say that the Patriots are just this sort of innocent flower that Antonio Brown lands in their lap. They're absolutely complicit. I would love to know forget the wiretapping stuff they put on John Gruden, which, by the way, is a California law that was broken, which the Raiders, because they don't want to deal with it anymore, are going to let that fly, and that's fine. That's almost humorous at this point. But I would love to be a fly on the wall to understand everything that was said between Drew Rosenhaus and the Patriots.
And when it was
dating back and when it was said, because the timing is so convenient and so quick, and it was so expedited. And you've got video of Antonio Brown running out and jumping around his pool because he did get his wish. We can use the money thing. And
He
look
wanted
at money.
out.
You can say that he
at that point he obviously wanted out. He didn't. Whatever the organization, and we talked about it. And this is why I'm not overly worried. I didn't have a strong feeling of them adding Antonio Brown, positive or negative. Of just
How?
What do you mean?
Like, I mean, how? It's disgusting. Like, how are you a Patriots fan and you have no issue with a guy who went AWOL in the most important game of the year for the Steelers and then just did this to the Raiders? And you're fine selling your soul for this.
No, I don't like the
What
Patriots
is
because
that?
I think they have a higher moral standard than other teams. I look at
what's the breaking point? What would you say? Hey, I don't want my team doing this.
But I don't know. I guess I don't understand why does Antonio Brown cause this outrage compared to a lot of other players that are on the Patriots. But I'm saying that are on the Patriots right now, that are on the Chiefs. The Tyreek Kill signed the contract.
Hey, there are different types of character issues. There are off-field issues, and people mix this up all the time. And then there is team.
Right.
And this guy has undermined team, and it doesn't bother you.
Well, here's why I think Bill Belichick probably decided that it was worth the risk, because it obviously is a risk. That he's not the Raiders. He's not John Gruden and Mike Mayock running a Mickey Mouse operation, maybe in their mind, or whatever. He's saying, I've taken in players before. I have a quarterback.
None who have done what Antonio Brown has done.
I have a quarterback who's, the greatest of all time, is a great leader, who says, I'm 1,000,000% in, that wants Antonio Brown on the team. And as a fan, I like just watching football. I don't like watching the Patriots because I've never believed that they are somehow better than other teams, that they've had a lot of characters go through that team that are unsavory, just like every other NFL team. So that's why I don't really understand why does Antonio Brown cause as much outrage as okay.
Because of what he's done to the team concept in a team sport. You grew up playing tennis. It's not a team sport.
I get it, but it's football. Like, to me, it's not that. I agree he's been a bad teammate.
Right.
But it's not that serious to me if he's been a bad teammate. I watch it because they're fascinating to watch as a football operation. I love the sport. I love the way they game plan every week. And to me, Antonio Brown is a fascinating player. And to see him on that team, it's going to be interesting. And here's what I would go with in terms of Antonio Brown. He's been in the NFL a long time. All this nonsense has happened and really expedited and ramped up since the end of last season.
There's reports that the Steelers have been dealing with it since 2012.
My point is, he's been in the NFL a long time, and when you go through all those years, there's production in all of those years.
Nobody's arguing that.
And because Bill Belichick, to me, and look, a lot of Patriots fans weren't happy about this. Our friend Burke, our producer Erica Tamposi, they hate the idea. And I say,
well, they'll be fine with it in 2 weeks.
And I say Bill Belichick, to me, has earned the benefit of the doubt that he can integrate people into the team, or he'll get rid of them quickly.
So
right?
Let me just, from my perspective,
He's
put a bow on it. My hope now is that Antonio Brown becomes the Trojan horse that destroys the Patriots, that all this ego that the Patriots out of this belief that we could take anyone and fix them, even someone who might be, let's keep it real, have some mental issues, because there's a lot of evidence pointing to that just because the Patriot way will take hold and fix him, if there are football gods, Antonio Brown will keep up his act and the Patriots will live to regret this. My fear is, and the fear of many, many football fans, is that what will actually happen is Antonio Brown will become a perfect soldier for the next 4 months, catch 115 balls, and the Patriots will go 18-0. That is the fear here.
I don't think the football gods, and guys, I listen to everything you said. I don't think the football gods, based on everything the Patriots have done, that have offended various people for various reasons from Belichick day one till now, are that upset about this. I don't think that they're going to be quite as appalled by this situation as some of us are. Bottom line, I don't think they view it that way, and I don't know.
There's no such thing as football gods.
Okay, but I think you see, in general, if we're going to point to them,
with the football gods too.
I don't think
Save it for the
view
theology
Antonio
podcast.
Brown as a home run Trojan horse in this situation because there have been characters that have gone into
Right.
New England and either produced or been let go quickly.
I know. You're saying the worst hope is that they fix him or they change. They don't. It's not like they change anyone. He's the person who he is. They're just playing a team sport, and can he act in the way that they want their players to act? There's going to be a lot in the building, a lot of pressure on him to basically get in line, and they've done it before. And if it doesn't happen, I think they'll just cut him and move on. Like, it's not like. To me, it's still just football. It's not that serious. And when we're talking about a sport where we're giving contracts,
Ask Mike Mayock if it's serious. Ask Derek Carr if it's serious.
I get it, but look at some of the players on that team. Look at what some of the players on that team have done throughout their careers and are allowed
He
to continue.
embarrassed Mike Mayock. Called him a cracker reportedly. And no, yeah, I mean, good, my Patriots signed him. That's fine. It's only football.
It's not that. It's just like
That's incredibly disrespectful.
Let's stick a pin in this.
To Mike
Stick a
Mayock.
pin in this. I knew there was going to be fireworks. I told Bartlett behind the glass, we're going to hit this topic. Greg and Wes are going to go at each other. We're just going to try to stay out
I
of
don't
the way.
feel like I'm going at anything.
And
I
then
mean,
we're
it's
gonna
hard
go
to argue with
Sunday night
nihilism. What
game.
can you do?
But obviously, it's an interesting topic, and we will be tracking it. Come on, Antonio. Antonio, do not start acting like a model citizen now. Please. Let's get to Sunday Night Football. Please. Oh, my God.
At the Patriot 42. At the Patriot 42. Brady backs up, stands in. He's going to throw a long ball to a wide open Dorsett. He's going to hit him in stride at the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Patriots!
You could come in this building. You could go home and tell everybody, hey, we at least got 3. We're on the board. 58
It's a little
yards.
much, Greg.
Freaking strike. Right
Well,
down the cut. The guy nobody talks about. All this kid does, keep working. And you strike for 58 yards. Start the buses.
Bob Sochi and Scott Zolak, the Patriots Network. Some things change, some things don't. Tom Brady throws 3 touchdown passes. Philip Dorsett scores 2 touchdowns. The Patriots destroy the Pittsburgh Steelers 33-3 at Foxborough on Sunday Night Football. Again, you predict things on Thursday and think you're smart, and then Sunday comes around and it's a disaster. I thought that this was going to be a great game. I thought this would have been a great way to punctuate a great Sunday of football. And the Patriots just embarrassed the Steelers. And I know this is has long been the story of this quote-unquote rivalry, that the Steelers always are on the short end of it. But, Mark, what surprised me was just how easy this was. Ben Roethlisberger and Pittsburgh's offense had no answers for New England's defense. And the Patriots' offense just cruised along as if nothing has ever changed, because it seems like nothing ever will.
It's not a rivalry. I'm tired of hoisting up these matchups as rivalries because Pittsburgh has never taken down New England in any game that actually had high consequences.
Had absolute high consequences.
If that's the highest consequence where Pittsburgh punctured New England on 11 week 15 last year, and then where do those teams wind up? I mean, you've got to be kidding me, because in general, New England has punched around the Steelers left and right, and this tonight is about as embarrassing a loss as Pittsburgh could have pictured coming into this year. And there were high hopes again. And, we're another team. We've talked on this podcast tonight about 3 or 4 teams sabotaged because of offensive line injuries where players are gone and your quarterback looks 1/8 of what he should and your entire offense has lost its flow. And the Patriots lose a center, a very valuable part of their offense. And for years on straight, they've lost offensive linemen left to right. Tom Brady this evening sacked once for 7 yards, throws for 341 yards and 3 touchdowns. And this is not to get back into this whole thing, but when we talk about Trojan horses and teams crumbling from the inside if you're New England because you make this choice or pull that lever, no.
Well, you're talking about 2 different things now.
I'm not.
Organizationally, the Patriots are never going to crumble. That we know. So when I brought up the Trojan horse, I mean just bringing in someone as destructive as Antonio Brown has been to his last 2 teams. That's a different conversation.
We'll see how destructive he is. But in general, the Patriots mask over their perceived roster flaws better than any team and on any sport in this country, and they do it year after year. And Greg, I understand what you're saying, that there is a competition between the Steelers, but if that is the high water mark of when Pittsburgh vandalized New England, then it is not a rivalry. It is not a rivalry. And I'm not going to listen to it anymore.
It's not.
I'm not going to listen to it.
Well, no one's talked it up as some great rivalry. It's been one-sided. I'm just saying.
It's a joke.
That was a good performance by the Steelers.
A lot of fire at the end of the podcast.
Well, because let's
you guys were furious about
No,
it.
you know what? It's not fair that Greg constantly has to defend something that he is not a part of either.
Right.
But at the same time, let's
He
not.
doesn't have to defend it.
Well, right. Enough with the straw men. This is not a rivalry. If this is what the Steelers. If anyone in Pittsburgh considers this a rivalry,
of course they
need to look at themselves in the mirror.
No one expected this performance. No one expected Josh Gordon, after not seeing him too much in camp, to have that sort of performance where he tosses Joe Hayden aside. For Philip Dorsett to have a great game. For Julian Edelman, who wasn't around that much, I guess we could expect that. Isaiah Wynn was a big factor in this game at left tackle. They lost their right tackle at the end of the game, Marcus Cannon. That is their thinnest position on the roster, so we'll see if that ends up being a factor. But it's a total disaster for the Steelers, especially, well, I wouldn't even say especially, both sides of the ball, but offensively, I'm not that shocked that the Patriots shut the Steelers down. I think the Patriots defense has a chance to be the best Patriots defense since 2004, and there's nothing they did tonight that'll change it. They're so advanced in terms of the intelligence that they have in the secondary and in the linebacker group that Belichick, who's really taken a strong hand in this defense, is going to be able to change up his strategy from week to week, and you saw it, and this was a tough spot. Patriots got helped out by the schedule makers getting a big game like the Steelers on this opening night when they raised the sixth banner.
At home.
The Steelers also.
Well, you're going to get it at home to raise your sixth banner and open.
Well, that makes
week.
sense.
The Steelers lost in every way conceivable in this game. They even lost in the injury battle because, yes, Marcus Cannon suffered what looked like an arm injury. Looked really serious at first. He came off the field. We'll see what happens with that, the right tackle of the Pats. But Marquise Pouncey, Steelers center, knee injury. We'll see what's going on there. TJ Watt, their expert pass rusher, hip injury. We'll see what's going on with that. Juju Smith-Schuster, he limps off with an ankle injury late in the game. We talked about earlier in the show that the Jaguars had maybe the worst week one, and that will be hard to top considering you lose your quarterback. But the Steelers are not far behind because remember, if and I'm not going to use the R word, Mark, but if the Steelers and the Patriots are both going to be fighting for playoff positioning and hypothetically a bye down the line, don't forget now, Patriots have the tiebreaker. So now the Steelers have to be one game better than New England. This is a week one game with big ramifications, not to mention the psychological ones of New England just toying with an opponent this Sunday night. It was not even close. Not even close. From the jump, the Patriots absolutely whipped ass.
Well, maybe New England will, they've gotten Miami next week. You can go find out how you measure up against your former defensive coordinator now down in South Beach, undermining that organization from the ground up.
It's a long season. I'm not saying that they're going to struggle. It will be different if they come out of the gates flying. Like it's been a few seasons since we've seen that from the Patriots. We certainly saw it in 2007. We've seen it in other seasons from the Patriots. So they can take different routes, but it's a very deep team, and it's still uncanny to me to see Brady now that he's a year older. He's 42 years old, looking that Brady-like, and for the Steelers to have coverage busts that reminded me so much of the 2016 AFC Championship game I was at, I believe, where they went up and down the field and just outcoached the Steelers.
Or 2016 Bethel High School.
An ominous start. If you're a fan that does not want the Patriots to be a dominant presence, this is an ominous start this weekend.
I don't want them to be any presence.
Oh, you're not going to get
the one thing they lost this weekend was Chris Wessling. Okay. All right. Good stuff, guys. Week one recap in the books. The next time, and remember, this is streaming on YouTube, so you could check out our Twitter handles, and we are we'll send the link out, and you could check this video out, this podcast out, if you please. And we'll be back Tuesday on our schedule, Sunday night, Tuesday night, early Friday, dropping with the preview pod, so check that out. Dan Hansa signing off for Quiet Storm, the mailman, the old boss.
Fire!
All sorts of friends behind the glass. Ryan Bartlett and company, thank you so much. Till Tuesday! Ooh, right on cue. Get over that wall.